Hello, everyone. Wow, did you hear that? That was real. I'm on the sidewalk of the town of Dingle in Ireland, County Kerry. That's some real stuff right there. Yeah, you're going to hear some sounds today. I'm having the time of my life. I am looking at the green hills overlooking Dingle Bay, and I'm just going to kind of have a good, just a laid-back conversation today in a kind of an unprepared way, but it's from the heart. That's the best way, right? But yeah, man, enjoy the sounds with me, and wish you could see what I see. Some children playing in front of me here in this big patch of green grass. My bed and breakfast over to my right. My wife Maura really did a great job with our itinerary, and I highly recommend the town of Dingle. But hey, this is Dan Duddy, and welcome to the We Will Revolution. Let's walk and talk. I was thinking about what my upcoming episode would be, and our good friend James from the radio station brought up some pretty cool points. He's like, "Hey Dan, you're in Ireland. Why don't you think about bringing some of the masculinity that you like to talk about to the hearts of our saints?" And with that being said, what about St. Patrick? And I said, man, I couldn't agree more. So here we go, and beautiful Irish wind here. So. Yeah, let's talk about that. And once again, my email address is dan@danduddy.com. That's DANDUDDY.com. I'd love to hear from you guys and huddle up and just kind of hear what you have to say, what you have to share, and bring it on the air. I don't have to mention your name. Just write that in the email if you don't want me to. But I'd really love to hear from you and develop a little team together. Yeah, how could I not think about St. Patrick here in this beautiful country of Ireland? Way too often, especially when I was younger, the only thing Patrick meant to me was I was going to party real hard for St. Patrick's Day parades, and I was going to make sure as a school teacher I was going to get something nice and green to wear. And yeah, just never really got into the heart and soul of Patrick until I really started to get reconverted back to my faith through my relationship with my wife Maura, who she demanded I go to confession. I don't think I told you this, but that's a boat in the background that you hear the motor taking off now, and some fishermen yelling to each other. But yeah, I when I first met Maura, I fell in love with her blue eyes. I asked her for her phone number, and she said, "I'll get back to you." I was like, "What?" And she said, "I'll get back to you." And it was probably the best thing I really could have heard, man. It put me right in my place. And she was a cocktail waitress, and not a good one, horrible one. And she got fired. She claims that she quit, but I know she got fired. But I followed her right out the door, and I asked her to marry me, and she did not say, "I'll get back to you." But let me back up a few. We had a couple of dates. She finally did, give in, right? And we had our dates, but it took 3 months for me to ask her. That's it. She didn't say, "I'll get back to you," but she said, under a condition, you have to go to confession. Yeah, couldn't argue with that. So we went to confession, and I'll tell you about that confession. She was a couple of people in front of me in the confession line, and as Catholics, you can envision this. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And she went into the confessional booth. She knelt down because I could tell she was on the kneeler because that little red light came on above the curtain, and I just kind of turned my head away, continued with the examination of my conscience or whatever. Probably thinking about the Yankees, more than likely some sort of distraction that had nothing to do with the confession. And I turned back, and the light was out, and she was already walking out of the confessional. I just kind of scratched my head. I said, "Well, that was a pretty fast confession." Then I watched her go to her pew as we shuffled closer, as the people in line shuffled closer to the confessional. And I saw her kneel down for her penance, turned my head again, looked right back, and boom, she's sitting in her seat. I'm like, my goodness, I went to confession, and my penance took so long that the custodian that had to flick the lights on and off, like as if it was closing time in a bar. But it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And we got outside, and Maura said to me, who would become my wife 8 months later, said to me, "Wow, that was a long confession." And I said, yeah, it was. I mean, a long penance. And but what I did not tell her until we were married a little bit, I said that penance was for 30 days. But the priest really hit me hard with, guess who, the Blessed Mother. I had to say a decade of the Rosary for 30 days, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me, along with my lovely wife, Maura. Yeah, I had to tell you that story. So, let's get back to Patrick. You know, when we think of Patrick, what do we think about? We think about shamrocks, right? We think about snakes. Once again, we think about green. We think about anything but the truth, the heart and soul of the man of Patrick. Let's talk about him a little bit today, because it's appropriate. It's that music in the background. Let's split that again. Let's kind of enjoy that music, but let's talk about the man of Patrick while we're doing so. Let's not forget about the flesh of our saints, the hearts, the souls, the virtues of our saints, especially in this case, our masculine saints. Those stories, those myths, those things that we kind of celebrate superficially, they can overshadow the courage and the masculine strength that Patrick was truly about. His greatness was not about physicality like the great warriors that we men like to celebrate. Even David, you know, that great strong David, you know, and his great warrior, physical warrior attitude. Patrick was different. His greatness was spiritual. It was a spiritual conviction. Of course, so was David's. But Patrick was pure spiritual conviction. He had a moral courage, men. He had a moral courage that 2026 is calling us to resurrect from within. We have it. Patrick is calling me, Dan Duddy. He's calling you, the listener, to go inside and fan the fires of that moral courage. Bring it out forward, shine light on it, and bring it into the voids and this darkness that we have in 2026. Let the man of St. Patrick's do that for a little bit today. Let him take you for a little walk with me today through Dingle. Let's walk and talk. He had an incredible endurance. Man, if we don't know what our endurance level is, if we don't know what our resilience level is, if we don't know how much we can persevere, then we're just not getting anything done, because life begins at the edge of our comfort zones. We need to feel the edge of our comfort zones every day in our spiritual life, in our spiritual callings, in our daily vocations as fathers, husbands, sons, future fathers, husbands. Here's a few virtues I want to talk about with Patrick that hit me in my contemplation of him as I look at the green hills here over Dingle Bay. Absolutely beautiful. And I picture him walking the hills. And I picture his struggles, his challenges, and the physical challenges of walking his mission through Ireland. Not easy. These hills are steep, they're rocky. It's just... But let's talk about something else that's far and above that. Patrick was kidnapped. He was kidnapped from Britain, and he was enslaved for 6 years. And he escaped. And after he escaped, he went back to Britain. He could have spent the rest of his life there, avoiding Ireland. But you know what he did instead? He voluntarily had this inner fire. He had this inner fire that launched him voluntarily back into Ireland, back to where he was tortured and imprisoned, back to where he was held prisoner, where his enemies were, because he heard the voice of God. And God had told him to bring the gospel to the very people who had enslaved him. And we talked last week about hearing that voice. And we talked last week about having us personally having a voice that's launched from our deeds, not to our deeds, from our deeds. Is there a greater example of such? He hears the voice of God, then the deeds take him back across the sea into Ireland. And then there comes his voice from his very deeds. Knocking on the door of the edge of your comfort zone is where you really start to live your spiritual lives. It's where you really start to become known to yourself and who you truly are. And that's what really makes you hungry to get more of that feeling, that exhilaration of busting through your comfort zone spiritually towards sainthood. We are all called to be saints. We are all called to be saints. We are here to be a saint. And there's no greater time than 2026 to become that saint. His courage was one of the highest order. He didn't go back for revenge, man. He didn't go back into Ireland for revenge. He went back on a much higher level. He went back with a mission. Back with a mission with God's name and voice in front of it. He put himself behind God, and he walked with God out front and center. He had a fearlessness. He had a fearlessness that came from his faith. He conquered the Druids. The Druids were the political elite of pagan Ireland. The Druids were super influential. They had enormous influence. They had a huge influence over the kings. They advised the kings. They were the go-to people for the kings, the powerful high kings. And according to tradition, according to what I have read, Patrick completely challenged the high king's ceremonies at a hill called Tara. And Patrick deliberately lit the Pascal fire on the hill of Slane nearby before the king's ceremonial fire. Complete slap in the face to the king, but complete spiritual boldness, saying, my God is God, the truth. And that was considered then a direct challenge to what was established as the pagan order, and that's what was the beginning of flipping Ireland into the Christianity that I stand before you on today. And it's in Ireland where I was in 1984. I was here, and I noticed that the churches were in collapse. They were getting boarded up, and much like as we've come to know in America, but conversely, as we know now in America, things are getting better. My gosh, the young people are flocking back to the churches. The same is holding true here in Ireland. Today, I'm here in 2026 versus 1984, and I see so much for faith. I see far more many religious articles in the windows of these towns, where, next to the pubs. I'm seeing that contrast, but I'm also seeing that connection that I always knew. The fun of the Irish along with the Catholic Church, and the Irish jokes that come with drinking, and the Irish Catholic jokes that come with drinking, my father-in-law, for example, would say, an Irishman who doesn't go to Mass is a drunk. But an Irishman who goes to Mass likes to have a few beers now and then. But I'm starting to feel that good Irish Catholic vibe here in the beautiful town of Dingle. But Patrick didn't arrive with an army. He came with the truth. He came with the one truth, the everlasting truth of Jesus Christ. We think about time for a little here. We're talking about a Patrick from, thousands of years ago. And we're talking about Christ, who 2,000 years ago on earth, but the prophets before him, thousands of years before, Christ came from the mouths of the prophets. And of course, we know Christ was there. Christ was there as he is the Son of God, the Son of Man. He's man God. He was there with Adam and Eve. Think about the elapse of time, and think about how we stand here in the present with God himself, and that we too are called to be present with God and know that time is only for the men and the humans, us on earth. God is timeless. He came with that truth. Patrick came with that truth, that timeless truth of God. He came with that truth where he was, where his feet were during that time, in spite of being imprisoned, in spite of being enslaved, in spite of being tortured. He came in his time. And we're called to come in our time, and the time is now. In any way that we can. by being truly our created selves, to go inside in the silence and become known with our charism, shake hands with our charism, come to terms with the charism that we have and fan the fires of such and live them in deeds, and feel the exhilaration once again at the borderlines, at the edge of our comfort zones with such. We don't have a soul, we are a soul. We have a body. We don't have a soul, we are a soul. The soul will stay with us forever. We have a body. That's from C.S. Lewis. He chose spiritual warfare rather than physical violence. His weapons were his prayers. Our weapons are our prayers. His weapons were preaching. For us, that means sharing the word. For us, that means sharing who we are. For us, that means sharing witness. Going inside and giving witness to yourself first and then sharing it. Sharing with your sons, your wives, your friends. Having the courage to do so. Courage is what we do in the face of fear. It's not absence of fear. His weapons were fasting. His greatest weapon was his example of personal holiness. He conquered hearts. Patrick conquered hearts instead of boundaries, territories. He didn't expand territories. He expanded the boundaries of the hearts of the men and the people that he walked with and served in servant leadership. He expanded the boundaries of their hearts and their souls. He flexed his will, the muscle of his soul, and by doing so, others did as well. Those victories, guys, those victories are victories for authentic masculinity. Those victories are probably the most real victories that we can give back to our Creator. The victories of authentic masculinity. Discipline means power, but it's a humble power. And it's under God's authority. It's under God's authority. It's following His word. It's following the impulses of a heart that's been readied by silence, rather than a authoritative coercion. God's authority, empowered by the silence, empowered by listening to our prayers. And as we said last week, letting your voice be launched from your deeds. Letting your work be launched from God's word. God's word to your deeds, to your voice, and to persevere, and to never quit, and to never give up. Patrick never gave up in spite of threats to his life, in spite of huge opposition from leaders, pagan leaders, the harsh terrain of Ireland, and years of missionary labor that included thirst and hunger. He baptized thousands. He ordained the clergy. He founded churches here in Ireland. I could see 3 churches to my left, steeples to my left here in Dingle. I see a lot of pubs, but I see those steeples. I'm gonna have a couple of Guinnesses after this, guys, too. And I see the Celtic crosses on the hills. True masculinity. I see true masculinity when I see that. It's just a matter of flexing one's will and feeling the revolution of one's will by doing so. It's all launched from humility, a faithful endurance. But I think arguably we can say this, and we can say the same for Christ. We could say that Christ's greatest virtue was forgiveness, right? I mean, truly, thank God. Truly, thank God, forgiveness is Christ's greatest virtue. It was Patrick's greatest virtue. And it's a matter of flexing our will for it to be our greatest virtue. Patrick's greatest strength was shown by forgiving those who enslaved him, by giving witness. He showed it. It was a deed. Many people can fight. Many people can step up and flex their physical muscles. But far, far, far fewer can forgive. Patrick built something. Pat built something. I'm 26. Patrick built something that far outlived him, and we're called to do the very same thing. We cheat ourselves, we cheat our Creator so drastically when we don't dream about such, when we don't allow ourselves to open our ears and listen to those possibilities. They're not possibilities. They are done. So all things are possible through God. We know that through Philippians. They are done when we move our feet after having been called to do so. Man, I just want to see if I could share a prayer with you here today from Patrick before we close out. Just give me a second here. And we all know this prayer, but let's hear it. This is the breastplate of St. Patrick, also known as, I'm going to say lorica, armor, meaning armor. And it's probably one of the most powerful prayers of courage and spiritual strength, and about the protection of the Christian tradition that Patrick has laid down for us. Let's hear this. Christ with me, Christ before me, Christ behind me, Christ in me, Christ beneath me, Christ above me, Christ on my right, Christ on my left, Christ when I lie down, Christ when I sit down, Christ when I arise, Christ in the heart of everyone who thinks of me, Christ in the mouth of everyone who speaks of me, Christ in every eye that sees me, Christ in every ear that hears me. Wow, that's me. That's us. That's living, huh? That surely is living. That's fighting a fight, man. That's a warrior. That takes strength. That takes courage. That takes resilience. That takes perseverance. That takes get up and go. That takes service. That requires preaching. It requires fasting. It requires fasting. It requires a whole lot of fasting. Speak to myself. Not good at that. It requires self-service over self-indulgence. We got this. We got this. Hey, I'd love to hear from you guys out there, all of you. Please drop me an email. Let me know anything. We could talk about it on the air. If you drop me an email and you don't want your name mentioned, by all means, I won't do that. But I want to build this huddle here as a football coach for 40-something years. I want to team up with you and continue to talk to you. Please support WQPH Radio and Marianne and Gene and James, who have become my very, very dear friends. Again, this is Dan Duddy, Dan at danduddy.com. I love you all, and I'm really looking forward to speaking to you again next week, and we'll dig into something really cool, I'm sure. So, signing off from Dingle, Ireland. I'm going to raise a pint for you all. God bless you all. Love you all.
And now John McDermott sings, Hail Glorious St. Patrick.
Hail Gloria Saint Patrick, be a saint of our isle. To us, thy poor children, be gracious the while. We pray to thee high in the mansions above, on Erin's green valleys, look down in thy love. Hail Gloria, Saint Patrick, thy words were once strong. Against Satan's wiles and a heretic throng. Not less in thy might, where in heaven thou art, O come to our aid, in our battle take part. Thy people now exiles on many a shore shall love and revere thee till time be no more. The fire thou hast kindled shall ever burn bright, its warmth undiminished, undying its light.
Check out the We Will Revolution merchandise on our website at WQPHradio.org.